It's fight week. It's almost finally here. This Saturday at Wembley in front of 94,000 fans, Tyson Fury defends his WBC heavyweight title of the world against Dillian Whyte. Is Tyson Fury going to show us all why he is arguably the best heavyweight in the world today? Or is Dillian Whyte going to shock the world and become the new heavyweight champion of the world? We'll also be discussing a few other topics, such as Conor Benn and what his next move will be. And are we finally going to get to see that huge fight in the 147 division between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, especially with Errol Spence winning yet another title in the 147 division? This is Faisal Khan for Lights Out, proudly sponsored by Spartans Law. And this is podcast 51 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast. Delighted to be joined by one of the oldest faces, one of the oldest team members, the new MVP, seeing as Ron's just been sacked for his poor audio display. It's the Walshmeister, Luke Anthony Walsh. Luke, how are you, mate?
To quote David Diamante, the fight starts now. It's Tyson Fury. It wouldn't be a Tyson Fury fight week without me on the podcast. And you quite said it yourself. 94,000 people, Wembley Stadium. God, it feels back to have a big British fight on our hands once again.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree with you more, mate. Being dubbed as the biggest British boxing fight of history. So there's so much to look forward to in terms of the build-up of that fight. And obviously there's a lot to talk about. We'll obviously be discussing a few things regarding the big fight this weekend at Wembley. I have to apologise in advance. I might sound a bit groggy due to hay fever. It's very, very bad this time of year. And currently I am one of the fallen soldiers of hay fever. So I'll try and get through this as smooth as I can. You might hear a sneeze.
I'll carry you. It's fine. I'll carry you like I always do. It's fine.
You've been carrying me for many years, Luke. Before we get started, just wanted to remind the viewers out there, if they haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn on the bell for further and future notifications. Check us out on all the social media platforms, which include Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They are below in the description. And if you can, also check out Spartans Law's social media platforms below in the description. And if you need the best legal advice, check out their website as well. Massive shout out to our sponsors, Spartans Law, as always. But as I said, there's a big fight this weekend. It's only going to have 94,000 fans in attendance, which obviously might not sound as appealing to someone, i.e. Carl Froch, but it is being dubbed as the biggest British boxing fight in history. And that, of course, features the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, and his challenger, the man who bids to win a world title, Dillian Whyte. Listen, I've got to put my hands up and apologize. I said a few weeks ago on our last podcast, I don't think this fight's going to happen, but Dillian Whyte broke his silence during last week. The fight is happening. Luke, it's not the fight that we would have liked to have seen, i.e. an undisputed clash between Fury and Usyk, but it is still a huge fight. There's a lot of needle about this fight. There's been a lot of negativity surrounding this fight, but however, it is fight week. It is going to happen. Excited for the fight?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've got Tyson Fury, the undisputed king, the undefeated WBC champion, and ever since he shut up Deontay Wilder, he's been the man, and nobody has even come close to sort of saying a word to him. And then you've got Dillian Whyte, who during lockdown, he lost a huge opportunity against Povetkin during fight camp, fought his way back, of course, last year against Povetkin in Gibraltar. And now finally he gets his moment. He gets his world title shot that he fought for 1,000 days waiting to get that chance, has finally landed on his lap. So you would say destiny is ready for Dillian Whyte, but he is against Tyson Fury. And, you know, it's going to be the biggest stage of the lot. 94,000 at Wembley Stadium is going to be torn in two, because you've got obviously Dillian Whyte's from London, I believe he is, against Tyson Fury, arguably the best British boxer for a generation and then some. So it's an intriguing fight, not the biggest fight. I think certainly Anthony Joshua still could bring in some draw, but I think certainly with Usyk beating him in Tottenham Hotspur last year, I think that's certainly taken the shine a little bit away from it. But it should be a big fight nonetheless.
Well, listen, the numbers don't lie. 94,000 fans. Frank Warren, says in interviews he expects a lot of buys regarding pay-per-view. This is a huge fight. It's Tyson Fury's first fight in the UK since 2018, and it's obviously Dillian Whyte's first fight in front of a UK attendance since the back end of 2019. So it's a huge fight nonetheless. There's a lot of needle regarding these two. There's been a lot of back and forth on social media over the last few years. Dillian Whyte's claimed to be getting a world title shot, which is prolonged for over 1,000 days. So I think there's obviously a lot of, points surrounding this fight, but the negativity is, for me, is what's been, the highlight of this build-up. Dillian Whyte refusing to get involved in terms of promoting the fight, refusing to turn up at the launch press conference. It's had a bit of a bad taste to it, but I think obviously, I don't know if you attended the media call the other day with Top Rank, Dillian Whyte breaking his silence during that media call, and now Dillian Whyte's done an interview with BT Sports with Steve Bunce. I had the chance to watch the debate show a little while ago, so it's on the right track. All that remains now is tomorrow's public workout, then the press conference on Wednesday, and then obviously Friday at the scales, and then it's go time on Saturday night. So, it's happening. I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. Would I have liked it to have been Fury versus Usyk or Fury versus Joshua? Yes, but Dillian Whyte's a fighter I've always respected. Is a fighter that I'm fond of. However, this is the ultimate test. So we'll obviously be asking our fans the question: how does Dillian Whyte beat Tyson Fury? It's kind of like asking how you beat someone up with both hands tied behind your back and a blindfold on at the same time, because Tyson Fury is the ultimate test. He is the number one heavyweight in the world. He's the undefeated heavyweight in the world. He is the man who beat the man that beat the man. He's the man that's, come back against all odds, all the trials and tribulations he's had thrown at him. It is the ultimate test. But if Dillian Whyte is to get the job done and shock the world, how does he do it, Luke?
I mean, I think people are underestimating Dillian Whyte. He's only lost twice. One was against Anthony Joshua, and the other one was against Povetkin at Fight Camp. Like, he's still got a fairly impeccable record. So I think he could easily show the world that he is nothing to be sniffed at, and could quite easily provide Fury with a challenge. But, you and I both know is that just at the point where we get complacent about how one side a fight would go, we're always caught up by the surprise. And, Tyson Fury is Tyson Fury. Yes, he has fought sooner than Dillian Whyte. Of course, he fought Deontay Wilder in October, and obviously Dillian Whyte fought in March. So there's a clear difference of ring rust there. But Dillian Whyte has got he's got the power. He is the body snatcher for a reason. So I think he'll provide a challenge for Tyson Fury. It's whether Tyson Fury won't get too complacent to see aside Dillian Whyte. I think that's going to be the interesting test on Saturday night.
Yeah. Listen, I agree. I'm not writing Dillian Whyte off. I think he's a phenomenal heavyweight. He's easily in the top 5. But as I said, this is the ultimate test. But Dillian Whyte comes into this fight with nothing to lose. Well, I'd say a lot of people expect him not to win. But he is the man that has no pressure coming into this fight. Tyson Fury is obviously the man who's the number one guy in this division. He is the guy to beat right now, in my opinion. However, don't sleep on Dillian Whyte. He's a very, very good fighter. He's got a huge set of balls, and he's a ferocious puncher as well. And, he's got that lethal left hand of his, which has caused so much damage throughout his career. And, Dillian Whyte's been on the receiving end of a loss. Tyson Fury hasn't. And Dillian Whyte's never fought for a world title. Tyson Fury has. That's what's kind of the difference between these two. And everybody expects Tyson Fury to go in there on Saturday night and put in an A-star performance. If this guy catches Tyson Fury, and we've seen Tyson Fury can be vulnerable at times. Fought Wilder 3 times and he got knocked down 4 times within those 3 fights. Steve Cunningham's put him down as well. Steve Cunningham was a cruiserweight. So in terms of Dillian Whyte's game plan, Dillian Whyte's got to be the guy that chases the fight.
Yeah.
He has to be the guy that goes on the front foot. He's got to be the guy that brings the fight to Tyson Fury. He cannot let Tyson Fury dictate this fight. Although the reach and the size and that jab favors Tyson Fury all day long, I still think Dillian Whyte he is a very big puncher. And as you said, they don't call him the body snatcher for no reason. We've seen in the past when he's put the likes of Chisora out, he's dropped Joseph Parker. We saw what he did in the rematch against Povetkin. If he lands on you, he's gonna cause trouble. If you're Tyson Fury, how do you set up in this fight? Do you set up the way you did in the last two fights against Deontay Wilder, or do you look to box Dillian Whyte and just completely floor him with basic boxing skills? What do you do, Luke, if you're in that corner of Tyson Fury on Saturday night?
One man, Sugar Hill Stewart. He's now part of Fury's camp, as he was with the third match with Deontay Wilder, and he has certainly changed Fury for the better. I mean, go back to the third fight against Wilder. You saw a much more measured and composed boxer than you did in the first two fights combined, because he was able to put on a show and put on a performance that was convincing all the way through. There was no if, buts, or maybes about that performance in any case. And the way that he has put his camp together, I think he'd be ridiculous to lose this. And I think Tyson Fury, if he gets past Dillian Whyte, which I think we are all expecting him to do in some regards, then there will be no other case but to put him with Usyk or Joshua. So it's as simple as that. Like, who else apart from Dillian Whyte do you put him in front?
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. There is only 3 fights out there for him now, and that is obviously the one on Saturday night against Dillian Whyte, and that is the winner of the Usyk Joshua rematch. Having said that, I think Tyson Fury. I can't remember who said it on the debate show, but it made a great point about, has Tyson Fury, because he was out of the ring for so long, has he still got that ability to show the sweet science of boxing? And I listened to that point, and I think it was either Carl Frampton or David Hay that said it. And I listened to that point, and I thought to myself, well, yeah, he still has got that sweet science behind him, because you've only got to look back at the first fight against Deontay Wilder in 2018. He completely outboxed Deontay Wilder, and then in the second and the third fight, he just smashed him to pieces. So I look again, no disrespect to Dillian Whyte. As I said, I'm a fan of Dillian Whyte. He's entertaining. He's a top world-class operator. I just think Tyson Fury wins this fight whichever way he wants to win this fight. I mean, I don't think he's got to change his game plan. If he wants to box Deontay Wilder, he'll easily outbox him. If he wants to make it, a brawl, as I say, fight in the pocket, on the front foot, I just think the attributes of Tyson Fury are going to be too much for Dillian Whyte. But when you talk about a game plan for Tyson Fury, I do think the longer the fight goes on, the more it favors Tyson Fury, because Dillian Whyte, for me, struggles in those championship rounds, and I think that's where fatigue comes into it. Having said that, Whyte's not fought for a year. Tyson Fury's last fight was in October. So Tyson Fury is the fresher of both fighters. He is the freshest fighter. He's obviously probably been in camp longer. He's been preparing since, I believe it was a few weeks after the third fight with Deontay Wilder. What do you want to see from Tyson Fury on Saturday night, Luke?
He has to step up to the occasion, hasn't he? It's his first UK show in 4 years, and I think you were there in Belfast against his one of his comeback fights against Pienta, and he's just got to show up and prove to the doubters, if there are very few these days, why he is the undisputed king and why he is the heavyweight champion of the world. But like I said, he is against Dillian Whyte, somebody who I guess you could call the underdog in some regards, but like you said, he has got that power. He's got that left hand which could really shock Tyson Fury if he's caught off guard. So but like I said, I think Tyson Fury will choose to finish the fight however he wants to, whether he wants to do the full 12 rounds or finish him in the first 3. that's up to Tyson Fury when he's on his walk out to the ring. But he'll be in front of a UK crowd for the first time in 4 and a bit years. Whereas, of course, Dillian Whyte has been the home fighter. So, yeah, I reckon Tyson Fury has it in the bag. I'll go for a Tyson Fury knockout on this.
So that's your final prediction: Tyson Fury to win via knockout. What round?
First 6.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with round 6 as well for Tyson Fury. I just think he starts off quick. He outboxes him for a few rounds, and I think he just finishes him off at the end. But listen, if it was the other way, would I be shocked? No, because as I said, Dillian Whyte is a world-class operator. Having said that, I think this man that he's up against on Saturday night is just he's a different breed. He's a different animal. You know, this guy cannot be beaten. I don't see him ever being beaten. All roads lead to Saturday night. Read a comment from here. Boxing Lover, one of our main followers. Fury toys with Dillian Whyte. The only way Whyte wins this is if Fury gets complacent and lets his guard down. Other than that, Fury wins all day long. It's a fair comment.
I completely agree. I think
complacency can happen.
He'll keep him within his reach, and he'll jab, and he'll just completely toy with him, and maybe let the door open just a little bit before regaining control. It's just whether he lets that door open a little bit too much to do that. But I think we saw that with Whyte when he was sent to Povetkin at Fight Camp, is that he had the match in his hands, and then one shot by Povetkin, and it was all over. So it can be done by either fighter, I guess. That whoever lets their guard down can really leave themselves open to be exploited and to be knocked out. So that's something that we'll certainly keep an eye on when we're in the ring between the two of them.
When you talk about heavyweight boxing, again, it's just a case of one punch can change everything in boxing. Do not be surprised. Fury wins every second of this fight, and in the last round he gets dropped. It's kind of similar to what happened against Deontay Wilder in the first fight, even though he got knocked out in the 9th round and then in the 12th round. But it can happen. I do think complacency could play a part. We all know Tyson Fury likes to showboat in front of the crowd. There's going to be 94,000 there on Saturday. He might look to put on a spectacle. But listen, let's see. I think it's business first. I think he's got to go out there and do the job. This is a huge fight for him. He needs to look good on Saturday night. You want to put on a good, convincing performance, considering it's the first fight in the UK after 4 years. And it is being dubbed as the biggest British boxing fight of all time. Let's move on and talk about some of Saturday night's boxing action. We'll start off with what went down at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. No, Luke, we're not going to be talking about WrestleMania, which happened a few weeks ago, which was a very, very good event. I was quite surprised at how good it was, but Errol Spence Jr. defeating Yordenis Ugas. Yes, that was for a unification bout. Spence took Ugas' WBA belt and now has a WBA, the IBF, and the WBC. Very, very good performance from Spence. Was out the ring for over a year again, but came back and looked like he'd not been at the ring for over a minute. He was phenomenal. Credit to Yordenis Ugas. He had some good moments in the fight, but when I talk about my top 5 fighters in boxing right now, this man is definitely up there. With every fight he has, after every fight, he just looks better and better and better. And this guy really is a phenomenal boxer. Obviously, a lot of the talk before the fight was again about Spence's ring inactivity. He was meant to fight Pacquiao, and then obviously picked up that eye injury and in-stepped Ugas, and Ugas beat Pacquiao and ended the legendary career of Manny Pacquiao. But it was only right that Ugas got his chance against Spence. Were you at all surprised with the end result, Luke, or did you expect Spence to be as good as he was on Saturday night?
Errol Spence, isn't he? He's the king of the welterweight division. And, lo and behold, after the fight, his next opponent has been called out, and it's Terence Crawford. The welterweight division is Spence and Crawford, because with Manny Pacquiao out of the way and retired, it's just between the two of them. And we're in for a blockbuster show. And, to have it in the AT&T where it can host 100,000 people, let's say we go back there again and that becomes... We'll talk about one of the biggest fights in British history against Fury, against Dillian Whyte. but one of the biggest fights in welterweight boxing, and I guess pound for pound boxing, will be for Spence against Crawford. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, it's a fight that fight fans have wanted to see for many, many years, and these two guys have been back and forth with each other about, percentage splits and whoever the A side is and whoever the B side is. Listen, you got Spence, who's undefeated. He holds 3 belts in the division. You got Crawford, who's also an undefeated fighter, and he's a former undisputed champion, and he's a freeweight world champion. It's easily a 50-50 split. I don't see the fight happening at Dallas, Texas, at the AT&T Arena. I think it's a bit unfair for Crawford going into Spence's backyard. I think if you're going to do this fight, for me, it has to happen somewhere iconic like Madison Square Garden. You talk about one of the biggest fights in the 147 division, and yes, we've been blessed to have had some great fighters at 147 pounds. You look at Manny Pacquiao, you look at the greatest of all time, in my opinion, Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, Pernell Whitaker. These are just some of the names I'm going through. And you got these two guys, both in their 30s, both undefeated. This fight could generate a lot of money. I do believe it generate a whole lot of money if an Eddie Hearn or someone on that level was promoting it. I'm not a big fan of Showtime. I don't think they promote their fights right. I do think that this fight has got the making to be a spectacle if it was promoted right. And having said that, I'm not trying to knock Showtime or any other promotion company out there. I just think there's ways you can promote this fight. This fight, it's a no-brainer. It's a fight that fans want to see. But obviously, there can only be one winner, and one guy will be crowned a undisputed king. Crawford's been undisputed before in one of the lower divisions. Does he do it again, or can you see Spence coming out on top and becoming the 147 king, Luke?
Depends what happens when the opening bell of the first round, doesn't it? I think it all comes down to how fit, how peak condition that they both come into, because as I said, they are 2 pound for pound fighters that will, regardless of the result, will go down in history as one of the best of all time. And certainly whoever is the victor will be undoubtedly the best of the best of the best, really. So it could go either way, couldn't it? But until it's signed, until the first bell is rung, I think we can all go back and forth as to who will win that one.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that one. And listen, it's a fight that's got to happen now. If it doesn't happen next, I can't ever see this fight happening. We've been blessed to have seen some good fights happen over the last couple of years, but there's still fights out there that we want to see. It looks like if Canelo can wrap up his fight against Bivol, we're going to get to see the third fight of him and Triple G at one weight. We're not far off an undisputed king up at heavyweight, regardless of how ever the results are. Now, I mean, you've got the best 2 fighters in that division. It's a no-brainer. That's a fight that needs to happen sooner rather than later. Again, we'll talk more about the action on Saturday night because the Zone put on a show in Manchester, and headlining that show was Conor the Destroyer Benn. He absolutely walked through Chris Van Heerden, which I kind of expected him to anyway. No disrespect to Van Heerden, but he's not fought for a while. Age isn't his best friend. Another good explosive performance from Conor Benn. Your thoughts on Conor Benn, Luke? Are you starting to warm to him? Are you a fan of him?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of him for a while, and I think certainly with Eddie Hearn by his side, I think there's obviously a good partnership and a good potential there. He's now unbeaten in 21 fights, which is an impressive career, and it keeps him on track for a world title fight this year. But obviously, the names that are circling for him, possibly Kell Brook, possibly Amir Khan, but they could be options that could supply us with some interesting fights. But then there's people like Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Adrian Broner, who could be perfect shots if he wanted to step up to welterweight and take him on. But yeah, it was an impressive performance. Chris Van Heerden, very much a journeyman. Very easy performance for Conor Benn on Saturday night.
Yeah, some of the names you just mentioned, they are all appealing names. Obviously, Amir Khan and Kell Brook, who had that mouth-watering clash a couple of months ago in Manchester and have had very lucrative careers in the sport. And then you mentioned Adrian Broner, Mikey Garcia, Danny Garcia. These are all fights Conor Benn will take in a heartbeat. Having said that, I was listening to a podcast the other day, I was listening to an interview the other day by Carl Froch, and he said that there's still big fights domestically for Conor Benn. You mentioned about his fellow Nottingham guy, Echo Essuman. who I believe holds the British Commonwealth title at 147. And then he spoke about David Avanesian, the European champion. And then I was thinking of names like, Chris Congo and then Michael McKinson. I mean, I've always believed in boxing. If you're a British fighter, it's British, European, and world level. Those are the three levels you've got to go through.
Yeah.
We've seen with a number of fighters these days that's not been the case. You look at Josh Bawatsi, Anthony Yard. These type of fighters haven't been through that level. And obviously, every manager, promoter's got a different plan. Not everybody has the same plan. But I think because of the names we've just mentioned, especially the McKinson and Avanesian, these are good fighters. Even Florian Marku. These fighters, they're undefeated fighters. And they will rightfully so claim that they are better than Conor Benn, and that they're on another level of Conor Benn. So I think it's just a bit unfair that Conor Benn is slightly being pushed to another level, whereas these guys aren't getting the sort of looking that they deserve. Because as I said, McKinson just headlined his own show in America, even though it's meant to be against Virgil Ortiz, but he pulled out due to injury. Avanesian's the European champion, who completely wiped the floor with his last few opponents, one of them being Josh Kelly. And Eko Esiman is the current British champion. So, it's not like these fights aren't big fights. These are huge fights, and everybody loves a British domestic clash. We've been sport for choice lately. If you have a look, we had Eubank Williams, Khan Brook, Taylor Catterall all in February, and now we've got this to look forward to on Saturday night with Fury versus Whyte. So the hype with British fights is always going to be there. We're also looking at the possibility of Brook versus Eubank, but I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the way he's being pushed at the moment. I mean, I'm not taking nothing away from him. I think he's a great talent. He's done wonders in his career so far. So why is it that you think that Eddie Hearn and these guys are not looking at these British fighters and thinking, yeah, let's just put him in there first before we move on to a level?
I don't know. I mean, I think one other point you didn't sort of touch upon, I think his surname is certainly carrying an element of it, is that because he is a Ben, he is expected to be at a certain level. But yeah, I think Eddie Hearn, with the direction he is going with the zone, I think he wants the up-and-coming fighters to come through. And with Conor Benn is that he has got a talent that I reckon he would be able to market in the next 2 to 3 years, should he continue on the track that he is going to. So I think it's a bit of business, a bit of boxing heritage, but I think ultimately is that, again, the names that you've put on there, if you can go through these folks with these, then we've got a star, haven't we? We've got Conor Benn as the next Anthony Joshua of the middleweight division and welterweight division, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the comparison with him and his old man, because he's got the old man's name, is a bit harsh, because I've said it over the last few months, he's gone from being Nigel Benn's son to the Conor Benn. And we only have to have a look at his performance. Listen, he's not the one doing the matchmaking. We need to remember that. I'm pretty sure he would jump at the chance to get in the ring with all the names that we've just mentioned. But again, that's where you have to look at the promoter, and I'm pretty sure once I get in front of Eddie Hearn and I stick a microphone in front of his face and a camera in front of his face, I'm going to be asking these questions. But yeah, these are the fights that you want to see. I mean, I've always said that the Conor Benn versus Florian Marku fight is a 0-2 sellout. However, having said that, right, we all saw Amir Khan get in the ring with him after the fight on Saturday night. I hope to God that we don't see that fight, because this is a young, hungry fighter, which is something Amir Khan is not anymore. And that's no disrespect to Amir Khan, but Conor Benn is young. He's up and coming. He's fighting regularly. He's more fitter. He's more sharper. And he's got a lot more to lose than Amir Khan. I would not want to see Amir Khan fight this guy anytime soon. But if I had to pick his next fight, I think, to be honest with you, the best fight for me, in my opinion, would be David Avanesian. He is the European champion. They're both good fighters. Avanesian is pushing for that fight against Crawford. Not going to happen anytime soon, because Crawford and Spence is hopefully the next fight. Hopefully that's the next fight that happens. I'll just read out one of the comments here from Adam Beanie Smith. Ben hasn't fought one top 10 welterweight in Britain, and he's 100% right. Listen, the British public are calling for these domestic clashes. And Eddie Hearn's claiming that Ben is ready for the likes of the Broners and the Mikey Garcias and the Danny Garcias. Well, hold on a second. What about the fighters at British level that he hasn't fought? And it's 100. Listen, I 100% agree with Adam Smith, Adam Beanie Smith. But yeah, listen, let's move on and let's talk about Dillian Cheema, from kickboxer to boxer series tournament winner. That's right, Dillian Cheema won the boxer series tournament on Saturday night in Coventry, in his hometown. A phenomenal achievement, a great tournament. Watched it from start to finish. And yes, people, I did have my laptop on the side watching Conor Benn's fight at the same time. But this young man, right, a hometown fighter, former kickboxing champion, had 2 professional fights, went in there and won the lot. You know, hats off to him. Luke, did you watch the boxer tournament? And if you did, what did you make of Dillian Cheema's achievement on Saturday night?
I mean, it's I caught some of it this afternoon and sort of researching this, but it's Sky Sports doing a boxing tournament all in the night. I mean, I was trying to research what it used to be called before it was the boxer series, but
Prize fighter.
Prize fighter. There you go. It's, you know, these series that give up and coming, you know, unheard of guys the platform in a one night to prove themselves as the boxer series champions. Yeah, it's just a great format, isn't it? And to come through from the quarterfinals, got past Scott Melvin in the semi, and then obviously a unanimous, undeniable victory over Charlton in the final. Yeah, what a night for the man! What a night for him.
100%. A young guy as well. Interviewed him last week before the tournament went ahead. A really nice guy as well, a good guy to talk to. Come out in his traditional Indian ring entrance with the drums and the drum and bass. It was phenomenal. And I've got to say, listen, man, I was very impressed with him. You know, the quarter final, he got rocked earlier on, and then he somehow turns the fight around and he ends up knocking out Otis Lookham in round 1. And then he fights a tricky fighter in Scott Melvin, who beat his stablemate in the quarterfinal, and he came through that. And then he got the toughest test possible in the finals, fighting Ryland Charlton, you know, who's a very experienced fighter, who's fought Joe Laws and Florian Mark, who's fought on big shows. And he went in there and he embraced every second of it, and he done the unthinkable. And, you know, listen, this is what you've got to give Sky Sports credit for. You know, they're giving this opportunity to grassroots boxing. They want to bring in the next star. They don't want to just make it about a face that we're familiar with. They want to bring in the next crop of fighters, and this is why you have to, you know, give credit to these tournaments. But listen, one thing that this guy has proven, that the crossover from any combat sport to boxing, it can be done, and he's done that. I mean, do we now have to sort of slowly maybe give it a bit of a chance, crossovers from kickboxing to boxing, MMA to boxing, because this guy's proven it can be done. He was a former kickboxing champion, Luke.
I mean, you can throw MMA into wrestling as a transition as well, as that we've seen it, that the physicality, the aggression, the strength, the level of fitness required to be able to make the crossover is impeccable. And as we've seen, like, you know, kickboxers have the opportunity to not use their feet and to be able to focus on their upper body game. So yeah, it's just about the mindset and the psychology. And I think for each fighter, it's about whether the move is right for them. But for Dillian Cheema to win this series, to prove himself that he can make it in the boxing format is nothing but a great achievement.
It is 100%. And as you said, you know, it's not easy making that crossover, you know, when you're so used to using not just your hands, but also your feet and your legs. This guy's done massively well. And I think now when someone asks the question, well, how do you expect us to sort of take a guy serious coming over from kickboxing to box? Listen, the guy that's challenging for the heavyweight world title on Saturday night was a former kickboxer, Dillian Whyte. You know, and he's had a very good career. He's a former British champion, and he's one fight away from becoming a world champion. This guy, Dillian Cheema, 21 years of age, from Coventry, went in there with some pressure on his hands because he was the home fighter. And as I said, he embraced it. And listen, hats off to the guy, but also hats off to Sky Sports for putting on yet another decent night of boxing. And I've said it now for a number of weeks. They are the number 1 platform in the UK right now. Okay, so they get a bit of criticism for their undercards. But you look at their shows so far. February was an action-packed month. Eubank versus Williams in Cardiff. Manchester, the fight that we've been calling out for 10 years. Brook versus Khan, they did that. Taylor versus Catterall in Glasgow. Yes, it was a horrible, controversial ending. but they still managed to get that fight happening. And now they've gone and done this. They are the number one platform for me, and I'm really looking forward to the next Boxer Series tournament, which I believe is in May, and it's the cruiserweights, and that's in Manchester. So hopefully that's a few days away in Manchester, covering that. But listen, once again, massive shout out and congratulations to Dillian Cheema on a wonderful achievement. He's well and truly earned that 40 grand and that Sky Sports contract. Really, really looking forward to seeing him back in the ring as soon as possible. Final topic before we go, and it's obviously I'm still in shock to even be saying this, but unfortunately, on the early hours, I believe, of Sunday morning, Ali Tazeem sadly and tragically passed away. It's just I'm in shock, and I'm upset. I'm upset because this kid 3 weeks ago, for the guys that don't know, went and signed his first professional contract with Pro Bellum, who are one of the new up and coming boxing promoting companies and are doing wonders in the sport right now. This kid is 18 years old. People are saying he was the next Amir Khan, that he had a bright future ahead of him. I've seen a lot of clips of him on social media. I've seen a few of his interviews. Such a nice, bright young lad, and tragically he's passed away. Luke, obviously, floor's all yours.
Yeah, I mean, like he got 2 gold medals at the Bristol Boxing Cup. He was again an amateur, by the sounds of it, an amateur boxing star, and again to have signed your pro contract 3 weeks ago and to lose your life is nothing but heartbreaking. I mean, just the tweet by his promoter Sam Jones yesterday saying this morning I woke up to news that Ali Tazeem had passed away at the age of 18. Can't believe it. I can't even process it properly. We only spoke yesterday about how he was going to light up the pro game. All I can think about is Ali and his lovely family, and just I think he said it perfectly. And it's just heartbreaking to hear. And I guess whether you're 18 or 48, to be in a car accident like that, and again when you have so full of promise and taken away is such a cruel game.
Yeah, 100%, Luke. I couldn't have said it any better. And obviously, our hearts and thoughts and our sincere condolences go out to Ali's family, friends, and all of his ones that were closest to him. And of course, sincere condolences go out to Pro Bellum, who had bright hopes with working with him in the near future. And it just goes to show you that nothing is guaranteed in this life. And if we can do anything to support Ali Tazeem, the name in the future, hopefully set up a fundraiser, which is something I would really like to do, then that's something we'll definitely be open to doing. But just heartbreaking news. And I don't want to go into it too much, but one thing it does go to show is that life is very, very short. And as you mentioned, Luke signed a pro contract 3 weeks ago, and today, unfortunately, no longer here with us. So again, rest in peace, Ali Tazeem, Inna Lillahi wa Inna Ilaihi Raji'un, especially in the holy month of Ramadan. May God be with his family at this, this very, very sad time. And it's obviously it's upsetting to end the podcast on a tragic note, but we do bring the podcast to an end. And once again, our thoughts and sincere condolences go to Ali Tazeem and his family. Luke, thank you very much for your time, mate. A pleasure as always. It's good to finally see you again. We hope preparations for the big day is going well. If you need any advice on how to prepare for the big day, I've done it a few times. No, I'm joking. Just the once. But first of all, early congratulations to you and the future missus. We hope the big day goes well. But we'll be hopefully be seeing you before that, Luke. Right? You're not going to be one of these husbands that gets tied down whilst he's married, right?
Hey, I'm committed to Lights Out Box, and whatever this Adam Beamy Smith comment, impossible to take the podcast seriously when the lad is sitting with a wrestling t-shirt on. I'm a wrestling fan through and through. I'm a boxing guy, but I love my wrestling. I'm going to defend that to the end. But yeah,
listen, I've worn wrestling tops on this podcast as well. I was going to wear my Roman Reigns bloodline one, but I just couldn't find it. But no, Luke, listen, we hope the big day goes well. And we hope, obviously, the journalism career is going very well. And Luke, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining us on today's podcast.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
And guys, if you can, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, like and comment. Don't forget to share the podcast out as well. Want to know more about Team Lights Out? Follow us on all the social media platforms. Links are below in the description. We are just days away for the big fight between Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. We cannot wait for this one. Thank you for listening to podcast 51 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast.